I will now offer some consideration of the chapter concerning cooperation from other people's money by Louis Brandeis. He brings up 2 points concerning the possibility of different municipalities, including within a state, cooperating in a manner connected to issuance of municipal securities. One of the things he says is that it could potentially allow for the state itself to play the role of banker in consideration of the different municipalities and their efforts at cooperation. But he then also goes on to discuss matters about how such a cooperation could form a form of credit union and how this could be a manner in which different municipalities within a state could cooperate. It's important, and we will get to more of this, to distinguish the differences between a bank and a credit union. It's also important, at least now, or more 100 years down the road from when this book was written, to discuss matters about what legally constitutes a state depository institution, which is not exclusive to a bank, but is also not exclusive of all of the possible institutions for banking and or potentially even credit union activity within a state. I think these distinctions are going to be very important for us moving forward. I know for myself, there has been some disagreements, including with those that are in the insurance sector, regarding what legally constitutes the current responsibilities of a state depository institution, especially when it comes to municipal bonds. So, in order to be able to elucidate on this, we'll go ahead and discuss this more as the context provides. But it's also important to discern his particular perspective on this understanding of cooperation between municipalities when it comes to issuances of securities from within the municipality. As we've seen so far from what he's said, one of his primary interests is who is the purchaser of the bond. And it was very evident from the beginning of the book, which we have not gone through together on film, but which I have read, is that the individuals who were original purchasers of these bonds at the time were also inclusive of people who were using their purchase of bonds as a means of political organizing for their communities, including people that had not previously been able to access considerable amounts of capital or other investment paradigms in quite the same manner. For instance, he speaks of one major financial institution during which that time the primary shareholders were women. And the engagement of those women in the processes of participating in purchasing of securities as well as dealing with their own role as shareholders and various other kinds of financial sectors was not only about providing for themselves materially, but had a variety of other intrinsic factors in connection with their concept of organizing. It had an impact on them politically as well as socially. And so this understanding of being somebody that is actually in a position to be the purchaser and that purchasing power, so to speak, as a form of moderation against excesses or concentration or defrauding or de-thefting the people who are involved is one of the things he's very focused on. So when we consider, for instance, today, this time frame we are in, where the role of municipal security issues are so important for so many matters, this concept of cooperation, not just between municipalities within a state, but also municipalities among and between many states. And this is something we're going to have to discern more as he provides elucidation and as we move forward. Specifically, if we are discussing another manner he hasn't mentioned, but one that is known enough and should be examined more, the concept of a financial portfolio which would include both municipal securities as well as corporate securities, and how the balancing of the priorities regarding these kinds of portfolios may influence factors determining what would then be available as the basis upon which different municipalities, including within a state, but also with intrastate implications, can cooperate. What would be an appropriate check against an abuse or against a effort to disproportionately leverage one or a number of those within the effort at cooperation to the benefit of another. The same factors that contribute to political corruption when it comes to administration of services within a single city could potentially be compounded or exacerbated if it was not prevented against in terms of allowing such a model to replicate in what would otherwise be potentially identifiable as a systematology for cooperation on this level. So these are the things that are really provocative at this point in time that I'm very glad we've gotten to. Additionally, I will say for myself, I have had experience with two different efforts to discuss matters related to the concept of a municipal bank. And once was in San Francisco during 2000, summer of 2010. And then later, when I was in Chicago around 2016, there was more comprehensive examination of the concept of a municipal bank. At the time I was in Chicago, there was also a very significant consideration of the concept of an application of municipal swap deals. There had been a number of municipalities that by that time had engaged in court processes and had engaged in litigious processes to determine the swap deals for their particular municipalities were illegal and were hence dealt with in one manner. But Chicago took a different approach at the time, and this had an impact on efforts to discuss matters related to the potential for a municipal bank. I do recall at the time that when I attempted to speak with somebody about this, one of the things that there was a significant concern that they had in regards to had to do with interest. The understanding municipal securities bear interest, which means it has to be paid out. I think that as we have a further examination of this concept of cooperation between municipalities when it comes to their securities, and we have some way to mitigate against potential exploitation of some form of portfolio combinations that might disproportionately impact certain municipalities in a deleterious way, then we can see, as he's already discussed, especially when discussing matters related to the role of the investment banker and the important role that can be played in their counsel, as well as the necessary role of taxation. Considerations around interest could actually be ones that could be looked at as being meritorious for the municipalities involved.